Hello friends, this is Stephen Kelly, aka Bald Beastie here, a mechanics guy for 13th Moon Games, talking about spellcasting in Coven Crucible. And I tend to get really excited, and so I'll talk really fast. So if there's ever any questions, please don't hesitate to drop them in the comments below, and I will do my best, or we will do our best to answer those for you. Spellcasting. Now we've already talked about the basics of mechanics, how to generate a target number, how to generate levels of success, how to generate a level of difficulty to apply difficulty rating to something, all of that stuff. But now we're going to get into the really heart of Covenant Crucible, which is magic, spellcasting. Okay, it's really exciting. And again, I get really excited. And so I hope it helps you get excited about it too, but also I know that I can tend to get excited and speak fast. So if there's something you missed and you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out, post them in the comments below, and I'll do my best to answer them. Thanks. Now let's get right into it. So we've got two types of magic when you are casting magic, okay? You've got improvised magic and you've got ritual magic, okay? Improvised magic is magic that is cast instantaneously, like in combat or on the fly, personal and individual, and generally requires a roll to succeed. For example, casting a luck spell on someone who is bowling and needs to pick up a split. Another example would be hexing someone in combat. Okay, and just ignore some of this. This is the text version, so insert sidebar. This was the text version of the book. This isn't the real nice and pretty core book that you have or may not have. Uh, this is just the text because it's easier for me to go through it this way. All right, so we talked about formula flexibility earlier, and we're going to do that again here. Here's an example. Dryas player decides he wants to use one of Dryas' actions to create an illusion using magic. His storyteller offers the formula magic plus magical plus disguise. Dryas player offers magic plus artistic plus crafting, and eventually they come to a compromise of magic plus magical plus crafting. Now, any of those three would be valid, and you can use any of those three. However, the great thing about it is that you can come to an agreement relatively quickly, and if it makes sense, roll with it, right? And it helps storytellers uh, think more creatively about formulas, and it helps players feel better about the things they can do with their characters. All right. So, like we said, there are many different ways to accomplish the same thing or similar effect, and you are encouraged to work with your storytellers to explore options. All right. So, here's an example. Using magic to become unseen, invisibility, could use any of the following formula: magic plus magical plus disguise, appearance, stealth, or larceny. Any of those would work. Or security systems, which makes you invisible to electronic surveillance, but not necessarily the human eye. All right, so there's a big list here of some of the magical effects based on the subskills in spellcasting. Uh, Duration of spellcasting is improvisational magic, 1 minute per level of success. So you cast invisibility on yourself and you have a level of success of 9. That's going to last 9 minutes. Ritual magic, which we'll talk about in a little bit, is 1 week per level of success. Okay, that's longer, and we'll get into that in a minute. But there's a list here in the core rulebook about some of the spell effects that you can create using some of the subskills, and you may see some overlap because you can use different subskills for similar effects. But we're going to go through here. I'm not going to read off every single one. You can go through there and see them. I'm just going to give a few examples. For instance, I want to turn that guy's shirt into lead. Okay, cool. That's magic plus magical plus science. I want to uh, magically forge a document or a signature, magical writing. All right. Endurance is a big one. Endurance is where magic resistance comes from, and resisting damage from environmental effects. You can extend your holding your breath. Anything you might imagine you could do with endurance, magically will create a magical effect based on that. Same thing with any of these other sub skills. Whatever you could do mundanely, think about a magical effect that you could do with that sub skill. And with the number of sub skills that we have, 63, that's a lot of effects. Lifting, telekinesis, right? All right. And going through blind fighting, seeing the dark, or seeing through, being able to see or sense 360 degrees around you, no matter what the lighting is. Telepathy, conversation. Um, you can use the espionage subskill for remote viewing or listening, so listening in at a distance. Anything you could do with a electronic listening device, you could do magically as well, magical sensor. First aid, healing, interrogation, telepathy or mind reading, intimidation, fear effects, paralyzation with fear, things like that. Okay, and then here is the magical subskills in the previews. You can again read through this. It's essentially these are the school. Essentially, you could say like schools of thought on magic, like alchemy, obviously potions, divination, seeing the past, present, or future, forging, creating the magical items in the hold of enchantments, hexing, cursing a target. Occult covers the identifying of magical items and magic in itself, and represents magical theory. It's the core magical skill, subskill. Does not include identifying supernatural beings, which is the purview of the parapsychology subskill. Summoning, obviously, calling ghosts, spirits, the genus loci, demons, angels, and all that stuff. Warding is magical protections. All right, so that's improvised magic, is magic that is cast on the fly in the moment. Most of your spells you're going to cast are improvised magic. Okay, you're going to be doing magical block, so that's magical warding, whatever your LOS is. That's not going to be a roll. It's just going to apply the LOS to the damage as we discussed in combat previous video. Ritual magic. This is magic that takes a scene or an hour or longer to cast, lasts a week, and is generally performed by multiple casters working in concert. Normally, ritual magic does not require a roll, but does require time and is unsuccessful if it is interrupted before the requisite amount of time. This is subject to ST fiat and should the ST feel it necessary for particular story elements. Ritual magic is cast by declaring a ritual leader, generally the witch with the highest potential level of successes, and then assigning assistants, if applicable. Assistants do not have to have the subskill that is being used in the ritual, but must have a magic attribute of at least 3. They have to be able to cast spells. Okay? It takes 1 hour at least to complete the ritual. If the ritual is interrupted, it is ruined. The magic has no effect. Sometimes the ST may say it's going to take longer, depending on what the ritual is you're doing. You don't have to have assistants for the ritual. You can cast a ritual on yourself, taking an hour and doing so. Okay. Each assistant, however, will add 1 to the level of success upon successful completion of the ritual. Ritual assistants who would normally have 2 magical actions in a round will be able to assist in 2 rituals simultaneously if they're within proximity of both. So you can have 2 rituals going on in the same room with different ritual leaders, and if all of the assistants have a magical skill of 8 or higher, they can all assist with both rituals. Pretty cool. And then I give a ritual example. Okay. Magical sight. This is the thing that you're going to want. We call it occult eyes. It's the thing that you're going to want your character to be able to do, so you can see magic auras, see magic items, tell what they do. Somebody has a ward up. You don't know if they have a ward up or not. You can cast occult eyes, improvised, and then for the next levels of success in minutes, you would be able to see all magical auras, what they are, what level they are, and what their effect is. So if somebody has a ward against divination up, you would be able to see that, and you'd be able to see at what level of success they cast it at. Okay. Again, we talked about spell duration. Magic items are continuous unless suspended. Ritual magic can last a week per level of success. Potions last an hour. Improvised magic lasts a minute per level of success of the witch casting it. Area of effect. Oh, you could have assistance also with improvised magic. All right, you can do that. And again, assistants each add their LOS to the actor's target number and 1 to the LOS. Area of effect. Spellcasting must have a clearly defined target or area of effect. Okay, generating an effect that is environmental in nature, like creating a fog bank or turning the floor to lava, uses the below standard as a guideline. 30-foot radius is an easy difficulty rating. 60-foot radius is moderate. 90-foot radius is hard. 120-foot radius is severe. All right. And if you create an effect that does damage, this tells you the level of damage per round that a person is in there that they're going to be exposed to, they're going to take. Okay, so if you turn 120-foot radius of the ground into lava, and somebody's in the middle of it, well, they have a severe difficulty. It's going to be anything really. They're going to have a severe difficulty, and then they're going to take 4 levels of damage per round. Okay, now armor can mitigate that. But they're still going to be taking damage. Environmental effects and damage. For naturally occurring environmental effects, such as building fire or extreme cold, the size generally indicates how intense the environmental effect is and how much damage it will do. You don't have to create you don't have to create this radius. You can make a smaller radius, but still have that level of effect, level of difficulty, right? So let's say you have LOS of 13 for turning the floor to lava, but you only want to do it in a 30-foot radius. You can, and it's still going to do 4 levels of damage per round, but because you've generated a severe difficulty rating, but it's just going to be in a small area. You don't always have to go to the maximum. Okay, that is the largest area you can do. Multiple targets. So if you want to do some magic against more than one person, each target after the first subtracts -5 as a negative modifier to the target number. And when targeting multiple targets with magic, the witch must also include the highest magic resistance difficulty rating among all of the chosen targets. So you got 4 people. You want to hit them all with a spell. So that's going to be -5 for each additional target past the first. So there's 4 of them, so that's going to be 3 additional targets. That's -5 for each. That's -15. And then of those 4 targets, 3 of them have magic resistance of say 5. So that's moderate. But one of them has a magic resistance of 11, which is hard. So that means not only are you going to have the -15, which will be applied after the difficulty rating, but then you have to overcome that hardest level of magic resistance, which is going to be having your target number and then subtracting 15. So it's hard to affect more than one person. Materia Magica and Improvised Magic. You could use Materia Magica to add positive modifiers equal to the level of the modifier of the Materia Magica to any improvised magical rolls. As with Alchemy and Foraging, the Materia Magica is consumed by the spell whether it succeeds or fails. Blood Magic. You can use your own blood to help enhance your spell casting. It can be used in the same way as Materia Magica. However, it creates a bond with your target or targets. For the duration, um, which is a number of hours equal to the bonus it grants, so up to 3. You can take up to 3 levels of damage and then add 3 to your target number and LOS. However, you then have for 3 hours a tie to that target, which means that target could then, if they wanted to cast magic against you, they could do so as if they had a level 3 Materia Magica. I'm sorry, level 3 tag lock. Uh, and they don't have to have a tag log and it's not consumed. They can continuously do that. So it's not the greatest way, but if you're in a pinch, you never know. Warding, with regards to wards, when you cast a ward, you must have a defined effect or effects. There's -5 negative modifier per effect after the first when creating a ward, much like having multiple targets. So if you want to cast a ward against divination and eavesdropping, that's an additional -5 to your target number. Okay. The ward then equates to a difficulty rating to perform the action defined against the warded creature based on your LOS, just like we talked about before. If you have 12 or more levels of success, you create a severe level of difficulty, which means anyone trying to either divine or listen into your conversations, whether it's magical or mundane, they're going to suffer a severe difficulty rating. Okay? Warding and immunity. You can make yourself nearly impervious to elemental damage, and you can explore any number of options for this. Generally, the main ones are magic plus magical to warding, or magic plus magical plus endurance. So I want to make myself immune to fire, or at least resistant to fire. I shouldn't say immune, because even with difficulty ratings, you're still going to take some damage. So making yourself resistant to fire could use either the following formulas or other ones, if you can come up with one that your storyteller agrees with. But their effects may differ. So magical's warding, you create a force field to protect yourself from fire. Fire doesn't touch you at all. Magical's magical endurance, the fire touches you but doesn't burn you or what you're wearing. Those are the effects, okay? And feel free to come up with other ones as an ST. Warding and summoning circles. Regarding wards and summoning circles, it is possible to pull a ward, either a creature or item or something, across a summoning circle without affecting the efficacy of that summoning circle, as long as it's not breached. So you're not dragging someone's foot across that salt circle and breaking the salt circle. So if you're pulling a ward via telekinesis or lifting or something, or summoning, you can pull it through that ward as long, or that summoning circle, as long as it doesn't break it, the physical boundary. You can pull a ward into a summoning circle without it actually breaking. Okay. Buffing. I think we talked about this in the previous video, but also you can take a look at it here. You can cast a spell that will enhance either your normal or magical actions based on a subskill. Okay. So if you want to, you have a big speech like we used before, using the persuasion subskill, you can do a magical plus persuasion, and your levels of success will then act as a difficulty rating to reduce, or as a level difficulty to reduce any difficulty ratings that you encounter. So if you're trying to convince a group of people and the ST provides you a hard level of difficulty, but you yourself had buffed yourself with a spell at a severe level of difficulty, because of your LOS, then that hard level of difficulty, hard difficulty rating is reduced to easy, which means you would have no modifier, no negative modifier for that. That's buffing. Hexing, levels of success on a non-combat hex equal to the number of minutes it lasts. If you're targeting a magic item with hexing to suppress its magic, the witch has a negative modifier equal to the total forging requirement levels of all enchantments of the magic item. And you can read that example. So if you have range 6, which is 12 forging levels, which grants 6 levels of the subskill ranged, and then plus 12 to the range target number, which is 12 forging levels. It's a large weapon, bypass armor, sneaky, all of those traits, everything. That's a total negative modifier of negative 32 because it has a forging requirement of 32 levels, and would be considered a very powerful magic item. The magic item would be inert and considered a mundane item for the number of minutes equal to the hexing LOS of the caster. Pretty handy. But it's also pretty difficult if you don't have a high hexing target number. Summoning. Summoning difficult rings. You want to summon a ghost, spirit, or demon aside from the regular requirements, like the demon's true name, for example. The category indicates how difficult the summoning is. Category 1 for ghosts. Category 1 ghosts, spirits, and demons are moderate. Category 2 are hard. Category 3 are severe. That's the difficulty rating you're going to encounter. However, your LOS for summoning reduces the difficulty rating, just like a buff would. Okay, so let's say I'm trying to summon a category 3 demon. That's severe, but my summoning levels of success are 13, which generates a severe level of difficulty. So that severe counteracts the severe difficulty rating, making it easy. So I would have no modifier to the roll. Okay, as long as I had that demon's true name, I should be able to summon it without problem. However, let's say if I'm doing something at I'm trying to summon a category 3 demon, but my levels of success are only 11. That generates a hard level difficulty. That means then that hard, which would minus severe, would reduce that severe to a moderate. Okay, and then that would mean I would have a moderate level difficulty to summon that demon. Summoning a living person's soul. This is it comes up not very often, but occasionally. We have a formula here for it. Magical summoning, it always will be hard, regardless of any other modifiers, no matter what. Then the negative modifiers are applied for distance. If it's ST Fiat, like if you're trying to summon someone's soul from halfway across the world, that's going to be hard, or it's going to be -5. Include any negative modifiers for difficulty rating of the wards and/or magic resistance of the target as well. So this is where you're going to start stacking all these negative modifiers. And this is the situation where you can have, because this hard difficulty rating here is not magical. It's a mundane difficulty. So that means you can, if somebody has a ward up and they have magic resistance, that means it's going to be, you're going to have a hard level difficulty, then maybe another hard, then maybe another hard, which is just going to be, this is going to reduce that down to almost nothing. If, however, you are successful and you've generated a target number and you are successful, you compare your level of success to the target's current health level. So the more hurt they are, the easier it is to pull their soul from their body. If your level of success are equal to or more than the target's health level, the summoning is successful and the target's body becomes unconscious and the target's soul is then summoned to the witch, or witches if you're doing ritual, which is more likely the case. If it's less, then the soul stays put, but the target is aware of the attempt and probably pretty scared. It should be mentioned that the default state for a living person's soul is in their corporeal form, and that if the soul is kept in the body for too long and the body unattended, the tie will eventually be severed and the body will die. Also, things to consider when you're doing this is the location of the target when casting. If you have no idea what your target's doing and you do this, you might be summoning their soul when they're driving. Pulling someone's soul out of their body while they're driving down the interstate may create a ghost sooner than expected. Because you obviously pull their soul out of the body, they become unconscious and they just crash. Divination, Apollo touched. This is a lot of fun. One of the funnest things I like to do is divination when it fails. If a roll fails, the ST gets to roll a number on 1d12, and then the diviner rolls 1d12. If the numbers are the same, then they become Apollo touched, which suffers an effect chosen by the ST. It's usually hallucinatory, generally involving the question they were divining. If it's divining the future, the DST gets to roll twice. And if either of those are the numbers that are rolled by the diviner, then they become Apollo touched. As mentioned previously, a single subsequent attempt after the first, the ST can add a +1 modifier to the try again roll. The condition lasts for a number of minutes equal to the LOS of the diviner's roll, as if it had been successful. In the event of a 13 is rolled and is a failure, the diviner automatically becomes Apollo touched. No more attempts at divining that question are allowed until the next day. Now, with divination, the try again rule allows you to try again a second time, usually only that second time for +1. Now, in divination, you can ask the same question a number of times equal to your level of subskill for divination. So if you have a divination subskill of 7, you can ask that same question 7 times. If you fail, however, you only get to add the +1 once. And each attempt after the first, you add, this ST gets to add another die to roll for failure if they generate Apollo touched. So if you fail 5 times, then on that 5th time, the ST gets to roll 5d12, and then the diviner gets to roll 1d12. And if that roll of the diviner is any of the 5 that the ST rolled, then they become Apollo touched. So it's more likely the more you fail that you're going to become Apollo touched. And you can coin that phrase however you want. So, we use Apollo touch because diviners are generally associated with the Greek triad. So there you are. Contingency magic. You can cast a spell on yourself that takes effect under certain criteria, like holding an action. Except you're not holding an action. You cast this spell. You can only have one of them on you at a time, but it lasts for an hour. So if you know that you're going to be doing something and you might need some help that you can't cast on your own, or not, well, you can cast it on your own, but you can't cast in the moment, then you can cast a contingency spell on yourself. Like say, if I get damaged, I cast healing on myself. And that healing spell will just kind of say hover there around you for an hour. So it's susceptible to being seen and suspended, but it can cast and interrupt it can either interrupt either before or after that action happens. So like say if I get damaged, so obviously if I get damaged, cast a healing spell on me. Then when you get damaged, it's not going to interrupt that damage, but it will heal that damage after you are damaged, based on your levels of success. Or you can say, if I get discovered, I want invisibility to be cast on me, contingent upon being discovered. So as soon as somebody sees me, I turn invisible. So that way, I don't have to actually take that action to become invisible. It just happens. Suspending active magical effects. This is the purview of hexing. Okay. But you have to become aware of a magical effect first before you can try to suspend it. That's a magic plus magical plus occult or awareness roll. So that's occultize. Okay? If successful, you learn the type of spellcasting created, improvised, or ritual, the effects and the level of those effects on a witch or area or item. Once you're aware of a magical spell effect, you can work to suspend it. In the case of multiple spell effects, you identify which spell effect you'd like to suspend. And then you use a magical action to make a roll with a difficulty rating equal to the level of the effect. So LOS 5 ward would give a moderate difficulty because it generates a moderate level of difficulty, and then it would become a moderate difficulty rating to suspend it. So spell effects generated from improvised spellcasting, which includes servitors. Servitor is essentially an improvised extension of the witch's will. Only one successful roll is required to suspend the effect for a number of minutes equal to the LOS of the hexer. So if I want to suspend somebody's servitor, boom, I can do it for a number of minutes equal to my level of success. So for spell effects generated from ritual spellcasting, it uses the same formula and modifiers, but they must accumulate a number of successful rolls equal to the level of the effect. So, and they must be consecutive actions. If it's interrupted, you have to start all over again. So, um, if somebody has a level 5 ward, I need to roll my hexing successfully with all those modifiers 5 times consecutively. So that's, if I have a magical skill of 8 that's or higher, that's 2 actions per round. That's a total of 3 rounds I would have to, which would leave me an extra magical action at the end of that round. But that's the requirement for ritual spellcasting. The moment the requisite number of successful rolls have been accumulated, the effect is suspended for either a full scene or the next hour, whichever is longer. In either case, the witch will immediately know that someone is working to suspend a magical effect that they is on their person or one that they created from the moment of the first successful suspension roll happens. In improvised magic, it's too late. It's already gone. In ritual magic, there is something you can do about it. It may not be able to define who that is because, like we said, magic may not be necessarily somatic, unless you're using an item that's obvious, so you may not figure out who that is right away. Okay, and then downtime actions is something completely different, not related to spellcasting. So that's it. Spellcasting in a nutshell. Under 30 minutes. I know there's probably going to be a lot of questions because I know I talk fast because I get really excited about all of this. But again, questions, post them in the comments below. I hope this video was helpful, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.